recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask a couple of questions, and this of Mayor Castro. And you may or may not know the answer, but maybe you can tell me. When we talk about a pathway to citizenship, and when we talk about people who are undocumented being here and having to go at the end of the line, and what they would have to do, pay their taxes, pay fines, whatever, sometimes I think when that conversation comes up, it's as though that would only take a couple of months. And I think, well, first of all, I do support a pathway to citizenship. I don't want to be shy about that. But I wanted to know if you had some thought as to how long that would take. If somebody goes to the back of the line,
Thank you for the question. First, I would just say that earlier the question was asked about, well, what is the compromise? The compromise is the fact that this is earned citizenship, that one would be fined, one would have to learn English, pay back taxes, go to the back of the line, and that line is a long line.
Right.
The fact is, as Dr. Aurora said, that for folks who are legally applying, that takes too long right now. It takes sometimes over a decade or longer. And so for anyone who thinks that this would be some sort of automatic application that somebody would be in a couple of months, that's not the case at all. This is a years-long process, and it's also earned. That's an important point to be made.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Another area that I'm concerned about, and I would like to know how this might be impacting your city, a lot of research, an issue that I work on is foster care. And because of the deportations that have taken place over the last few years, there are anywhere to 5,000 to 6,000 children who have been placed in foster care because their parents have been deported. The children were citizens. And I wanted to know if that is affecting your city and what your thoughts might be on how we would include a resolution for that situation as we do comprehensive immigration reform.
Sure. In any community the size of San Antonio, you do have examples of families that have been torn apart. And certainly I hope that in this legislation we can find a way in addressing immigration reform comprehensively to deal with those types of situations. I remember that George Bush, when he was governor of Texas, used to say that family values don't end at the Rio Grande, and that's certainly true still. That keeping the family together has been so much a part of the progress of America, and so my hope is that can be addressed.
Absolutely, and I think when we talk about family values, we really have to consider this. And so one of the issues that I would be concerned about is those people that have been deported. How do we reunite them with their children? We did a listening tour in Miami, and I went to a residential facility for foster youth, and there were a group of children that were arriving that day in Miami from California who were being sent to live in Miami. So not only are they completely disconnected from their parents, but any environment that they might have known, and what's to happen to those kids. So when we're thinking about resources of our country, our government could wind up supporting those children all of their lives because we have disconnected them from their families. So I think it's an important issue that we factor in when we do comprehensive immigration reform. Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Teitelbaum, I wanted to ask you a question because you made reference to one of the previous members had asked you about the agricultural industry, and coming from California, clearly that's a major industry. And you said something about how if unskilled workers were not allowed in the country or were removed, that maybe growers would make different decisions about what they would grow. And I was wondering if you could give a couple of examples, because I can't think of crops that would not require farm workers. And how would a state like California that feeds a good percentage of the country then make decisions about certain crops?
I can give you a very memorable example, visiting a farm or ranch that had a very large number of apricot trees that had to be hand-picked. And I was talking with the farmer and asking him what his situation was on labor. He said, well, all of these people are undocumented, and I don't pay them very much, so I can afford to hand pick. these apricots. You have to hand-pick apricots. They're very fragile fruit. So I said, well, what would you do if you didn't have that labor force or the price went up substantially? He said, well, we're already losing money on our apricots to apricots coming into the port of San Francisco from Turkey that are undercutting what we can sell them for. I'm probably going to do this anyway, but if it happened the way you describe, I would certainly do it. I would cut down all these apricot trees, and I would plant walnut trees. They would grow great on this land, and with a walnut tree, you put a tarp under the tree, you bring up a mechanical shaker, you shake the tree, all the walnuts fall on the tarp, and that you've harvested the tree in about 10 minutes. You still need some labor, but a lot less labor. That's pretty typical, I think.
Okay, so I would just suggest that you would devastate the economy of California if California then only switched over to crops that did not require the labor of farm workers.
Oh, they will require some farm workers, always.
Right.
But the question is, how intensive is the labor needed for a given crop?
So walnuts, do you have any other examples of crops that do not require farm workers?
There are many crops that are labor intensive and many crops that are not. I mean, wheat is not labor intensive.
Okay. Well, thank you. I yield back balance of my time.